Welcome to our presentation as part of the California Trails and Greenways Conference, Electric Bicycles on Trails. Where do we go from here? We're happy to see everybody here, and we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot to cover. I'll get into introductions in a minute. I'm Susie Murphy, and this is our agenda for today. We're going to do quick introductions of our panel, and then get into general e-bike resources, and then current demographics and sales information, e-bike policies in general, and then transition into e-mountain bike policies, issues and opportunities, and what lies ahead. So our panel today is myself. I am the executive director of the San Diego Mountain Biking Association and also on the board of directors of the California Mountain Biking Coalition. And we also have Stephen Sheffield of Bosch e-bike systems. Thanks, Stephen, for being here. And we also have Ashley Seward of People for Bikes. She is their regulatory and policy analyst. So great panel today. And we look forward to sharing you some of the most up-to-date information that we have on e-bikes generally across the country, but specifically, we know everybody's mostly interested in California. So we'll get started right away. So we know a lot of you, we're going to talk about general e-bike resources. We're not going to get into some of the basic stuff today. If you need to know more, we'll provide some information of where to find resources that might be helpful for you, because we really wanted to get into some more recent information, and we feel that most people probably in this audience have kind of a basic grasp of e-bikes and e-mountain bikes. So real quickly, People for Bikes, Ashley and her colleagues offer a great amount of information and resources on their website. So they have information on general e-bikes and e-mountain bikes, from what the classes are, and then getting into the weeds about policy and legislation, which is changing all the time. And they also provide great information for advocates and also for land managers. They have a document, Managing Electric Mountain Bikes, a handbook for land managers. I share that with our local land managers in San Diego quite frequently and beyond. So their website is there, peopleforbikes.org. So if you haven't checked that out, I find it very helpful, and people that I refer there are always very appreciative of all the work that People for Bikes does to provide most up-to-date information. So I am going to pass this off to Stephen Sheffield of Bosch, and he's going to give us a little bit of overview of some demographics of what we're seeing in e-bike consumers, and then also in recent sales information. So Stephen, take it away.
All right, thanks, Susie. Hi, everybody. So with e-bikes in general, we definitely see that they lean toward an older population. This is changing over time. More and more younger people are getting involved in e-biking, especially when it comes to using e-bikes for commuting. E-biking in terms of e-mountain biking is still largely driven by older, experienced mountain bikers trying to stay in the sport a bit longer and maybe ride with friends of different abilities. The average education and income is above average, and the most common motivations that we're finding when we talk to e-bike consumers and potential consumers is that they're purchasing it as a way to maintain fitness and as a way to get around, to reduce automobile usage. And most people who buy an e-bike note pretty quickly that improved health, lower transportation costs, and everybody just sees that they're having a lot more fun doing this. And in terms of sales, e-bikes remain the fastest growing category in the whole bicycle industry in the United States. We estimated in 2020 that there was somewhere between 450 and 500,000 e-bikes sold in the US. For dealers, so independent bicycle dealers, that represented an increase of 138% versus the previous year. And now we're at the point where nearly all major bicycle manufacturers have introduced e-bikes in various categories, everything from e-mountain bikes to cargo bikes to city bikes to cruiser bikes. It's hard to find a category of bicycle that there's not an electric version of now. One thing that's really interesting for us here is that we are quite behind the European market in terms of e-bike sales. So last year, there were 4.4 million e-bikes sold in Europe, so roughly 10 times the volume that we saw here in the United States. That's it on the sales and demographics, and I'm looking forward to your questions at the end of the, or after the video.
Thanks, Stephen. Thank you for the insight on data and demographics. I would like to now take us through an overview of the three-class system of electric bicycles, as well as an understanding of how they're regulated at the state and federal level. So from a high level, the three-class system of electric bicycles, I think many of us know, but just to review, class 1 are pedal assist with a maximum speed of 20 miles per hour. Class 2 are throttle assist with a maximum speed of 20 miles per hour. And class 3 are pedal assist with a maximum speed of 28 miles per hour. Now, at the federal level, e-bikes are regulated for product safety standards, and they're often defined as non-motorized for the purposes of federal transportation funding. And at the state and local level, e-bikes are regulated often within motor vehicle codes for their use on streets and bike paths. And of course, on public lanes and trails, e-bikes are regulated by the federal, state, or local land manager that has jurisdiction, and they have their own policies in which a rider must check before riding. Moving forward to the federal law concerning electric bicycles. So electric bicycles have been defined in federal statute as a bicycle since 2002 under the Consumer Product Safety Act. And what this statute did essentially is that it gave e-bikes the same federal safety standards, the same detailed mechanical requirements, and the same assembly, braking, and structural integrity requirements to that of a traditional bicycle. There are a couple points to note of this statute that are important to know. The first being that it does not follow the three-class system, but it is consistent with the three-class system in that it accounts for both pedal and throttle assist bicycles, the 750 watt limit, and the maximum speed under 20 miles, or the maximum speed of 20 miles per hour under motor power alone. But note that that is motor power alone, and that is not a combo of both human and motor power. Moving forward to state electric bicycle policies, this is where it gets a little bit different. So as I said, states regulate e-bikes under their motor vehicle codes for streets and bike paths. And this can address issues such as licensing, titling, insurance, and registration requirements. And so 6 years ago, to help make this a simple and easy process for policymakers, riders, and industry members, the three-class system of electric bicycles was created along with model legislation. And what this model legislation does is that it gives e-bike riders similar rights and duties to that of traditional bicycle riders. So having just a national perspective of what the lay of the land looks like right now, there are 43 states that regulate e-bikes like bicycles, but 28 of those states do follow that three-class system that I was referring to. 7 states currently do not define electric bicycles at all, and this means that they regulate them similar to that of a motor vehicle. So registration, insurance, and licensing requirements may apply. And lastly, just please note that there are 17 states currently that have bills pending to adopt the three-class system. So moving forward here to take a more local perspective, this is the fun slide. Here in California, California's e-bike bill was passed in 2015, and it adopted that three-class system that gives e-bike riders similar rights and duties to that of traditional bicycle riders. E-bikes are not subject to insurance, registration, titling, or licensing requirements, but there are a number of interesting things about this law that I'd like to go over. So the first being that local and state agencies have the authority to regulate electric bicycles under motor power alone on bike paths. And then there's a couple other things regarding the class 3 electric bicycles in California. The first being that class 3 bicycles cannot be used off street without a local government or state agency giving permission. Additionally, class 3 riders must wear a helmet. They're required to wear a helmet when riding. And you must be 16 years or older to ride a class 3 electric bicycle in California. The last important thing that I'd like to note here is that California's e-bike law is really unique in that it was the first state to require that the 3 classes of electric bicycles be labeled. And this essentially created a national labeling standard for national use. And I will now kick it off to Susie to talk a little bit more about electric mountain bike policies.
Okay, thanks, Ashley. That was awesome. So here we go. I would say that in the last few years, obviously many of you know this is a hot topic, and trail advocacy organizations such as IMBA, the International Mountain Bicycling Association, and local or regional groups like the California Mountain Biking Coalition, as well as local groups like mine, the San Diego Mountain Biking Association, have struggled, argued, done surveys, all sorts of things to try to get a handle on what our position is. Now, all of these, most of these associations as nonprofits, we don't make the policy. We're not the people that make the laws. We don't have jurisdiction, but we can offer guidance and a position to our members to just sort of state what we think based on our member feedback about how things in e-bikes should be regarded. So IMBA came out that they support Class 1 e-mountain bikes access to non-motorized trails when the responsible land management agency consults local mountain bikers and deems that e-mountain bike access is appropriate and won't cause any loss of access to non-motorized bikes. So there's this balance between e-bikes and traditional bikes that many of you are familiar with. There's IMBA recognizes that the technology is changing quickly and the numbers of e-mountain bikers are evolving. And but the belief is there, and I believe it too, that bikes can be managed in a sustainable way, both for the environment and for other trail users. The California Mountain Biking Coalition came out with pretty much a similar statement that we support Class 1 e-bikes where the land managers deem they are appropriate. And our San Diego Mountain Bike position is, Mountain Bike Association is pretty similar as well about Class 1. So that's kind of where the advocacy organizations that I'm familiar with are standing at the moment, although there may be some others that have different opinions. So I'm going to pass this off to Ashley to get into some of the really beefy federal regulations that are happening now.
Thank you, Susie. So there are a number of things that happened in 2020 regarding e-bike regulation at the federal level on public lands. The first being that in October of 2020, there were 4 agencies under the Department of Interior that released finalized rulings regarding e-bike management. This was significant because historically these agencies defined electric bicycles like motorized vehicles. And what this ruling did is that it defined electric bicycles into the 3-class system that we've talked about. And it also meant that e-bikes were no longer considered motorized unless the rider is using throttle alone to power their bicycle for an extended period of time. This rule also made it so that e-bike riders are subject to the same rights and duties of traditional bicycle riders, but then must follow the same rules of traditional bicycle riders. But the most important thing to take away from this slide is that this rule does not mean riders can go ride wherever they want under these agencies. It simply just gives land managers the authority to allow e-bikes if they choose to do so. The other important thing that happened in 2020 was that the U.S. Forest Service released proposed revised directives regarding the management of electric bicycles. So what this means is that they proposed that e-bikes would be managed as motorized vehicles, but they would also be adopting the 3-class system of electric bicycles. A few more important things to note about this proposed directive is that it would create a new motorized trail designation in which a motorized trail would only allow e-bikes. And it also would create additional policy considerations for future travel management plans to consider emerging technologies such as e-bikes. And lastly, it would give a set of criteria for land managers to help guide them when they're making decisions regarding electric bicycle policies. Please note that these are revised directives. They were proposed and they went through a public comment process, but they have not been finalized. Moving forward to state park electric mountain bike policies. I think, as we all know, these are extremely variable. It depends on where you're looking. But it's important to note that many state agencies are currently reviewing their current rules and considering new policies as they're getting more information and taking a closer look at current regulations. So there are currently 13 state parks that at a minimum allow class 1 electric mountain bikes on non-motorized natural surface trails where bikes are allowed. And 9 of these states do in fact follow the 3-class system and define e-bikes in that manner. Moving on to this slide. So this slide is simply just a visual map so you can see those 13 states that allow a minimum class 1. And I would just like to highlight that this map is on our website and it is updated. And as you know, these are changing policies. So if you're looking for an update, please visit our website and you can get that information.
All right, thanks, Ashley. And so this being, our California Trails and Greenways, we want to drill down into what's going on in California. And again, as Ashley stated, this is a changing, there's policies changing and things opening up and having new directives and orders all the time. So it's a lot to keep up with, but we'll do our best as things stand right now. After consultation with state park staff in Sacramento, the understanding is that under superintendent's orders, e-mountain bikes are currently allowed at Wilder State Park in Santa Cruz and Forest of the Nisene Marks State Park and Auburn State Recreation Area and Folsom State Recreation, although Folsom is only on some of the paved trails only, so not on natural surface trails. So the next thing that I want to talk about is some of the local, this is a list based on some information from People for Bikes. As you drill down into local county and city jurisdictions, they are also working within the state law and other things to determine if e-bikes are going to be allowed on their local non-motorized trails. These various cities and counties are allowing them to different extents. I did add San Diego to this list, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that and what our city and county are doing here locally in regards to e-bikes. But anyway, this is always a fast-moving target, so this list may not be entirely accurate. And I guess if you know that your county or city is allowing e-bikes or considering policy, we'd love to hear about that in the question and answer period as well, so we could have a discussion. That would be great. So me being a SoCal girl, we can talk about what's going on in San Diego County. We're actually really happy that our county was really proactive in our city in considering the legislation and how that was going to impact our trails. So over a year ago, our County of San Diego implemented a pilot program to allow e-mountain bikes, class 1 and 2, actually, on most of their trails. They kind of have a few that are still not open to e-bikes, but about half or more than half are. I talk with the county staff regularly. They're really not hearing of any major or consistent complaints or issues with other trail users. So they've been really happy with the rollout, and we are as well. They're reviewing it right now to see if there's other trails that they could add to the list as being open for e-mountain bikes. And we consult with them regularly about anything that might come up. And the city of San Diego, which also manages a lot of trails here in the county, made a decision based on the legislation that class 1 and 2 are open on all non-motorized trails. They made no differentiation. And as far as I know, they haven't had a real problem with complaints or anything as well. So things seem to be going well. And I know that the e-bike users are happy about that when we're able to share that there are places they can ride their new e-bike legally in the County of San Diego. We have other smaller jurisdictions and agencies that are considering their policy. Like City of Escondido does allow on their open spaces. City of San Marcos is in the middle of planning their policy. And we work with we have a local retailer, Fly Rides, that also has a store in Los Angeles. They've come on as a sponsor just recently, and we're working on some joint trail user education, uh, like podcasts and different things. So I'm really looking forward to working with a retailer who's really trying to educate their customers on the things that we're all concerned about. So that's promising. We also are hearing there's several pilot programs going on in different jurisdictions around the state, and so this is just one that I had heard about in my work with the California Mountain Biking Coalition, and I also put a link here to a webinar that People for Bikes had about pilot programs of e-bike use on trails. So if you want to refer to that, we could probably put the link up in the chat when we do the question and answer period. But the Mid-Penn Regional Open Space District up in the Bay Area is just approved a 1-year pilot program in January. So they're getting ready to roll that out. And visitors will be allowed to use e-bikes on designated trails, both paved and natural surface, in these 2 areas, Ravenswood and Rancho San Antonio, where regular bikes are allowed. And the pilot program has a component of public outreach and monitoring. And in the monitoring, you can see the things that they're going to be looking at here: compliance, accidents, trail conditions, visitor experience, and complaints. So these are the kind of programs and the data that comes out of them that will be really useful for all of us and for people all around the country, especially in a busy open space like Mid-Penn. So this will be very interesting to see how that pilot program goes. And then this is really new. I just received some information yesterday regarding this pending research, which is ongoing this year from the Federal Highway Administration. And I'm actually part of this committee invited by the Department of Transportation. So this is at a high federal level. But they're doing a research project called The Future of E-Bikes on Public Lands: How to Effectively Manage a Growing Trend. I was really impressed on the first call at the people they had gotten together to talk about this on a very high level. And this study is going to identify and inventory existing and potential impacts related to e-bike use on public lands, and then analyze the data to inform science-based decision-making and management processes for land managers, this is what we've been after, right? This is the kind of research that we really all need as advocates, as trail users, as land managers. So I'm really excited to be part of this. I will say that the agency representation is across all different federal and some state and regional agencies. And then the user groups that are represented is a very balanced combination of bicyclists, equestrians, hikers, and so on. The bike groups that are involved are People for Bikes, me as a representative for SDMBA. There's a representative from the New England Mountain Bike Association and a rep from IMBA, reps from the League of American Bicyclists and the Adventurous Cycling Association. So fear not, the bicyclists are equally represented among the other user groups, which was something that we set out very early to make sure that that was maintained. So the timeline on the study is continuing through 2021, and a findings memorandum is due in February of 2022. So in a year, we'll have some really great information, I hope. So that being said, we'll take a deep breath and we're going to go into issues and opportunities. As we know, with most things, things come with, can be a double-edged sword. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to have Ashley talk to us a little bit just about some general findings about e-mountain bike use, and then we'll get into specific issues and opportunities.
Thanks, Susie. So yeah, of the studies that have been done so far to understand the use of e-bikes on non-motorized natural surface trails, it's been found so far that electric mountain bike demos can positively change the perceptions of individuals who participate in those demos. One study or demo in particular was in Fruita, Colorado with the BLM. And it found that 40% of the surveyed visitors said that after they were surveyed in the demo that they do believe electric mountain bikes should be allowed on non-motorized trails. Additionally, other studies have shown that trail users often can't tell the difference between an electric bike and a traditional bicycle while on the trail, and that electric mountain bikes can have similar trail impacts to that of a traditional bicycle. It's been also found that electric bikes travel at similar speeds to that of traditional bicycles, but they have been found to go slightly faster when going uphill. And lastly, here from a social perspective, it's been found that more complex decisions regarding the management of electric bicycles should be made on a local trail by trail basis, where lane managers and stakeholders can come together collaboratively to find a solution that best works for their community. Pass it back over to Susie. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, I think all of us know as these policies continue to trickle down to the local land managers, which, the advocates in our audience, I'm sure, have those relationships, and it's going to be really important to engage as they try to make these decisions. So let's get into issues. We'll do issues first and then get into opportunities because, that's the way it should be. So I think many of you will agree. And as we go through these, I'm hoping that the issues here and the opportunities discussed will trigger some questions that we can talk about in the question and answer period following this presentation. So make a note of your questions because I'm sure this will inspire a few. So from what we have gathered as a group, in talking with my members, people across the state, and Ashley and what she sees, and Stephen and what he sees, there is definitely across the board general confusion for trail users on various policies or policy development. All the news last year about the Department of the Interior and the Department of Ag and these things coming down. People who may not be as informed were like, oh, now we can ride our e-bikes everywhere in the forest. Well, that's not, it's a little more complicated than that. So trying to get through that inconsistency of communication regarding policy and e-bike access is a big challenge. And as these policies get rolled out and decided upon, I believe it's going to be part of my job as a leader and advocate is to try to help those land managers and agencies get that information out as best as possible. So that's that. And then the social impact is also what generally comes up in any conversation. If you talk to other or listen to other trail user groups, they'll talk about, the trail etiquette, concerns about increased trail access with more e-bikers riding more often or something like that. And we all know with the pandemic situation, it's brought just more people out on trails in general. So trail etiquette is always a concern, but in my opinion, after doing this for a long time, trail etiquette is for everybody. I don't care if you're on an e-bike. I don't care if you're on a thoroughbred racehorse. I don't care if you're on a donkey or if you're a trail runner or a walker with a baby stroller. Trail etiquette is for everyone. And that's my story and I'm sticking to it. So I am concerned, and others are, of the depiction in media of atypical users. I think the bike media can tend to, and even commercial media, other companies that use mountain biking as a marketing tool tend to show an atypical user that may be out not riding responsibly as we would hope. And so we continue to have discussions with publishers and website people about how they depict mountain bikers and mountain bikers in general. Like most of the people out there are not shredding. Shredding is really a very, very small percentage of people. Mostly it's families, older riders on e-bikes who want to be outside, people trying to get from one place to another. And so we really would like the media to present a more inclusive and equitable image of what's going on in the world. There is some concern that comes up frequently about aftermarket modifications on e-bikes that can cause them to go faster. And also there's a lot of products that are being maybe sold as e-bikes, but they're more like, and Stephen could probably answer more questions about this in the question and answer period, but things that look more like motorcycles being sold as e-bikes, but they're not e-bikes as defined by the classifications that Ashley talked about earlier. And then lack of current research, although as we just talked about, there is research happening, so that's very exciting. But I still feel that more studies are needed from various parts of the country where there's different soil types, different weather, different climate, different kinds of riding and conditions. So I think the more research we can get, the better. Of course, studies take money. Sometimes for a local advocacy group, it's just nearly impossible to perform a really a study that would have enough, data to make it useful. So that's why these national studies are very helpful. IMBA, everybody points to IMBA's study that was done, but I think it was in 2015, and it was not done on a variety of soil types. And that was very early on in e-bike development. So, it'd be great for more support of research. So going on to a few more, remember to jot down those questions because I'm sure that you have them. Some advocacy groups are concerned about e-bike access issues because some grants, the way they're written now, only apply to non-motorized trails. So then you get into, well, are e-bikes motorized, non-motorized? Can we still get the funding for this trail project if e-bikes are allowed? I'm sure the language on some of these grants just needs to catch up with the technology and what's actually happening on the ground. There is some talk, especially when you start collaborating with OHV people about a pay-to-play sort of program. Some kind of licensing like the Green Sticker program generally comes up fairly regularly in conversations I have. So I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, but it definitely is a topic for conversation. Land manager concerns, there's many, and it's a lot for them to handle when their staffing is already stretched thin. But I think a lot of them are concerned about, additional impact on trails because of more users, which leads them to have additional staffing time and all of that. But I think, again, this is kind of like the trail etiquette issue. I mean, there are more people out on the trails than ever in the past year, and we all know why. I mean, we're having some local trails here in San Diego that are showing a 500 or 600% increase over like 2019. So it's really, I think we've all been involved in conversations that deal with this. So to me, again, this is not just an e-bike issue. This is just a general fact of people wanting to be outside and access our public lands. Trail design concerns, this is something for all the trail builders and advocates out there. Concerns around increased sight lines, consistent and clear signage, potential to need to provide possible more directional trails. I know more and more are popping up, and I know us as mountain bike advocates, we're very happy about that because we feel it provides for the need that people are looking for and also alleviates some of the social conflict. So directional trails, implementation of recommended speed limits on trails. This comes up quite a bit. State parks generally has a posted or unposted speed limit of 15 miles an hour. So that applies to everybody on trails and state parks. Our local Cuyamaca State Park does have some signage to that effect and has for a very long time. So I think that it's hard to enforce a speed limit, but if it's set as a general guideline, I think this is a way to kind of just at least inform people that they need to ride responsibly and travel at a reasonable speed. So that being said, hopefully your question list is growing, and I'm gonna keep talking here, but get into the more fun stuff about opportunities, because there are many, many opportunities that we all have as advocates, land managers, and trail users when it comes to e-bikes. So this picture here is actually of a volunteer of ours here in San Diego and his setup when he goes out to do trail work. And so he uses this is on a City of San Diego trail in Penasquitos Canyon. We were working on a project with the rangers, and he put it out there actually with all his tools from his house to go work on trails. So it's a great way to use e-bikes without killing yourself carrying all this stuff. So some of the things I wrote here, this might generate some questions. If you have ideas of other opportunities or things you're seeing in your area, please share them during the question and answer, because we'd all love to learn from what you're doing. Fostering stronger relationships with trail advocacy organizations. to develop and communicate policies. So, as these decisions are made by the land managers, we can be here to help communicate that to our members and followers. Land managers and volunteers using e-mountain bikes for patrolling, interpretive, or trail work activities. We have provided an e-bike through a generous sponsor to actually the ranger for where this picture is taken. And they use it to get around, get out of the truck, go out on the trail and check on something quickly without, being too tired the rest of the day. So they really like it. And I'd like to get more e-bikes out to land managers. I think that's really helpful for where they're allowed. I think they're a useful tool. So of course, providing accessibility for more riders, for all kinds of riders of all ages and abilities is a really important thing about e-mountain bikes and e-bikes in general. We feel that the industry can partner proactively regarding policy and regulation and fund research and pilot programs to allow informed decisions. So the more we can get the industry involved, and they've had a great year, we all know. So I'm thrilled with the support that we're getting from some local e-bike retailers and then from people like Bosch at a higher level to really help with some of this stuff, because like I said, the studies cost money and we need the information. So thank those that are already involved for that, and talk to your colleagues and get them all involved. So continuing on, I think other opportunities are that bike shops can really, with all the new customers they're bringing in to buy e-bikes, they can really engage in advocacy and education to new consumers, including, when things get back to a little bit more normal, doing demos out in the field. The e-bike demos are great where they're allowed, and I think it really provides people information, and especially I think it allows maybe hikers or equestrians or other people that might see the demo to really come and ask questions and understand more and really get the facts about e-bikes. There's a great media opportunity to tell the e-mountain bike story accurately, as I mentioned before, to really show the vast diversity of e-bikes and e-bike riders and what's really happening outside, instead of just showing the, I don't know, I don't want to call a name out, but, just showing the shred bros, I'll say that. So there's all kinds of people out there using e-bikes. And then I think there's a great potential to reach this new audience as stewards and advocates, to get them to really appreciate the work that's being done by People for Bikes and their local trail advocacy organization for e-bikes to help land managers. So I think this new audience has a potential for all of us to just reach more people with our message. So I'm sure there's many more opportunities, and I'm sure many of you are working on initiatives. Many advocates are working on their own initiatives, so we'd love to hear about them. So we're almost getting to the end of our presentation here, and I just want to talk a little bit about what might lie ahead. And this is, as we've said, this is a fast moving target. Things are changing quickly. A lot of things came down the pike in 2020, and it's still going on, as Ashley can attest to, all the things she has to keep up on the legislative side. So we anticipate many policy and access updates in 2021. I'm sure many of you have heard about these e-bike rebates and incentives. There's some that are federal, some that are state. There's a Clean Cars for All program, which can provide up to a $7,500 voucher for qualifying participants. And there is you really have to qualify for this thing. It's not just for everybody. This is up in the Bay Area. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District is the first to roll out a program like this. And then there's the E-Bike Act, which is a federal proposal that, if passed, would be a $1,500 federal refundable tax credit, but this has not been finalized yet. And then there's also a California Assembly Bill 117 that is passed and would establish for an electric bicycle rebate pilot project. So these things are kind of all just in the emerging stages, and I'm sure we'll hear more as 2021 continues on. We feel that in the very near future, advocates are going to continue to need to monitor and give input on federal, state, and local decisions regarding e-bikes. And there needs to be major engagement by advocacy groups and stakeholders as local decisions are developed, potentially on a trail by trail basis. I mean, we hear this a lot, so it's going to take people sitting down in a Zoom or at a table, maybe, to talk about specific trails and what is really going to happen with policies in state parks or in the forests or other places. Tahoe's going through a great plan right now. I was on a meeting and they were literally trail by trail basis on a Zoom with a bunch of people. And it was very encouraging, the conscientious way with which the forest was addressing everybody's concerns. It's great. I think a major consumer education effort could be undertaken by advocates with support from industry and retailers about e-bikes. And then I think Stephen can attest to the fact, and most other retailers I talk to, that e-bike and e-mountain bike sales are only going to continue to increase. So these conversations, which we've had ongoing, are so, so important, especially for those of you that attend California Trails and Greenways. So with that, I think hopefully we've generated some questions, and we're looking forward to hearing those shortly when we get into our question and answer period. So we'll be starting that shortly, but first I just want to thank Ashley so much and People for Bikes for all the work they do, and for Stephen and Bosch and his help today, and for Bosch and their support, being an industry leader in education and helping local and state advocacy groups with our efforts. So greatly appreciated, you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see everybody in the question and answers.